Welcome along to OTB AM, the Off the Ball breakfast show, live every single morning.
Counting down to more moments like this.
Top pocket goal!
Hashtag OTB Coigig.
Alright, you're very welcome back for a very special OTB AM broadcast, as the Republic of Ireland women's national team squad has been named by Vera Pauw officially ahead of the World Cup, which gets underway on July 20th for the Irish team against Australia. And the squad is as follows: the 23 person squad. Goalkeepers Courtney Brosnan, Grace Maloney and Megan Walsh. The confirmed defenders: Heather Payne, Anya O'Gorman, Niamh Fahey, Louise Quinn, Diane Caldwell, Claire O'Riordan, Megan Connolly, Chloe Mustaki and Izzy Atkinson. Midfielders: Katie McCabe, Denise O'Sullivan, Lily Agg, Rusha Littlejohn, Ciara Grant, Sinead Farley and Lucy Quinn. And the forwards are Ciara Carusa, Amber Barrett, Marissa Shiva and Abby Larkin. So some big name omissions from this squad, of course, that we touched on in the show this morning, including Leanne Kiernan, including Jamie Finn, and of course those injuries to Megan Campbell and Aoife Mannion as well, leading them to not be in this squad. We have Kathleen McNamee, host of the Coigig Pod, and Adrian Barry in studio as well. Kathleen, your immediate reaction to this squad?
I think it's pretty much what we kind of expected after the news broke last night about the players that were out. Of the ones that I said I thought would go back in, pretty much all the same. I said I thought Claire O'Riordan would be brought in and that Megan Connolly would be shifted into defence, because that's generally she's played in that back four whenever we've had injuries to Megan Campbell. Izzy Atkinson was one of the ones I wasn't too sure of. I actually didn't even have her on my initial squad yesterday, just because she was a preliminary player, or she wasn't, sorry, in the preliminary squad, and then she was brought in for Megan Campbell and obviously caught the eye of Vera Pauw quite well. So fair play to her. That's really impressive turnaround in the space of about 2 weeks to get into the squad, and she hasn't had the easiest route since she went over to the WSL, so I think it's really good for her confidence to get into this squad. Delighted to see Ciara Grant in there as well. Been such a servant to Irish football. I had her on my preliminary list of the 3 players that might be going, and I genuinely found that really, really tough because she has been there for so long. So yeah, not too many surprises after we discovered about those injuries. I don't think. Pretty much the players I expected to get in. I know John was saying earlier that he was a bit surprised about Jamie Finn, but I actually did have her on my preliminary list, which we haven't got yet. We haven't been officially told it, but hopefully Vera Pauw will clarify that later.
Yeah, I think the FA have released it with a video on their social media channels within the last 5 minutes or so. Kind of nice clip of a young girl kicking ball on an empty pitch by herself, and leads into the squad itself. So as you say, no real surprises. We haven't yet seen a standby list of 3 names that could well come in up until, I guess it's the day before the tournament,
the 19th, yeah. So the day before the first game starts.
Okay, so
obviously we're launching the tournament.
Yeah, well, exactly. So that'll be the only potential changes to this list of 23 if anyone is confirmed injured. In advance of that, one of those 3 standby players will come in. But yeah, still the omissions is the thing, isn't it?
Well, it's right now is a devastating time for those players that have missed out. Like at this exact moment, as everybody, so they've had their own personal disappointment over the last probably 12-15 hours. They've spoken to their families. They've shared that disappointment there. Now there's an extra wave coming as every general public start to cotton onto it. Their extended friends, extended family start to get in contact with to share their disappointment, and
the hype starts as well, because once you have a squad, everything feels a lot more real. So everyone's going to start getting excited about the World Cup, and to not be involved in that's going to be.
And I think they will probably over the next. It takes a few days. Like they're in a grief curve at the minute of like huge disappointment. We spoke a little bit earlier about some of the players, particularly who can feel most especially aggrieved by it. So you do have to spare a thought for them. I think that's very tough. Anya O'Gorman is one name that stands out. I remember talking to Anya O'Gorman possibly about 4 years ago when she was it that long? Must have been when she was racking up her 100 cap for Ireland as she approached retirement from the international scene, and you know what it all meant to her over that period of time and the progress that Ireland made.
And surprise!
Look at her here, like it really is incredible.
Maybe change position as well, like she just transformed as a footballer over the years as well. And even someone like Rusha Littlejohn, like there was that injury, remember in March where she goes off for Aston Villa, and you're thinking no, this is a disaster. But like for someone like her, this is...
Well, she's basically put her club career on complete hold to get herself into this position. Like, she went to her club and she is out of contract now officially because the window's opened, but she was out of contract at the end of the season, and she was just like, look, I'm not chancing my World Cup spot. I've talked to Vera Pauw about it. She is happy enough for me to be doing certain programs to make sure I'm keeping up my fitness, and probably shows how important she is in Vera Pauw's setup, that Vera was like, yeah, you don't need to be playing competitive football, you just need to keep yourself fit, which was no mean feat considering the amount of injuries and stuff she had. And even in the start of the training camp, you know, she was actually training separately to the main squad to make sure that she was kind of doing what she needed to do. So yeah, definitely a good one for her. I said it before, I was slightly curious, is this maybe a bit of a last hurrah for Ruesha, in that if she was willing to, when she's out of contract, say, well, I'm putting the national team in the World Cup first, is that maybe a signal that this tournament might be her last one, and then after this retire from football? I don't know, could be a possibility, especially just with the injuries she's had over the last while, so might as well enjoy her as much as we can.
Yeah, those injuries. So of course Aoife Mannion tweaking her knee ligaments in training with Manchester United around a month ago, had a knee brace removed only on Monday apparently of this week, so there had been hope that she would make it, but hasn't, unfortunately for her. Megan Campbell withdrew from that doubleheader against the USA back in April, and didn't of course feature for Liverpool towards the tail end of the season anyway, and that means Claire O'Riordan, who as we mentioned was so good against Zambia, is in. Izzy Atkinson is probably the latest bolter, I guess you could call it.
Definitely the latest bolter. I mean, Claire O'Riordan, one of those names that like has been in and out of the squad but never really featured in any of the starting team, so it'll be really interesting to see how Vera Pauw does use all these players. I mean, even you look at the way they're lined up here, like Heather Payne is there as a defender. We've known Heather Payne as the only person who's actually played up front, as that like lone person that we lob balls up to for the majority of the qualifying period. And I know in that US game she was played in a different position, but it does give a little bit of an insight looking at the way Vera has outlined this team as to what she's thinking. Even Megan Connolly being in there, I mean, I know a lot. I talked to her when we were out in Marbella for the China and the Germany friendlies, and I was normally plays as a midfielder, and I was asking her, you know, how are you adjusting to being part of that back four? And she was just kind of like, you know, I know my place in this team. I know I have to do whatever I need to do, and I will be as good at it as I can. But she also said it was quite tough at the beginning, so it'd be interesting to see how that develops over the course of the World Cup. But yeah, Izzy Atkinson, I mean, to be not named in that starting preliminary squad, to be on the outskirts, to get in, of all the players that were given opportunities, you know, like Tara O'Halloran, Erin McLaughlin, it's probably still a little bit early for them. They're still kind of young in their development, although I don't have any doubt we'll probably see them moving abroad at some stage in the next couple of years. What was she have been feeling last night whenever Vera Pauw told her? I know we talked a lot about how upsetting it would be for some of these players, but also
the other emotion, the
other emotion for someone like Izzy Atkinson, that young, you get into a World Cup squad after 3 weeks of just pure graft. I mean, that's impressive.
When you talk about Heather Payne and that option, like we mentioned earlier on the show about obviously the absence of Megan Campbell and the weapon that she brings to it, and like we have seen particularly over the early stages of qualifying campaign, also Louise Quinn been sort of put into that mode of like desperately needing a goal late on, and she's up front. We've seen Lucy Quinn at times do the same thing, so like it will be interesting to see, because I do think what our striker options look like in our starting 11 is going to now become the focus and the biggest talking point.
Yeah, that's the annoying thing as well about losing Aoife Mannion, because she probably did give us a little bit of speed from playing out of the back, because she's just so good with the ball at her feet, whereas we definitely don't really have that with the centre backs and then whoever plays on either side of them. We don't have that at the moment, so it's going to be interesting to see, does that mean that Vera has to kind of revert to how she was playing pre the US game, or will she still work with the squad that she has? I mean, you also have the options, I suppose. We saw how much Sinead Farrelly added to that midfield whenever she played in the US games, but also still is working up in terms of her game time and stuff. So, and because of the injuries that some of these players have had, maybe Vera will be forced into more changes than she normally would, because it's like 3 games in 10 days. It's fairly tight turnaround for these players, probably not the sort of thing that they're really used to because they've never had to do it before. I would say Katie McCabe and Denise are probably the main ones, used to it just from having played in, like, say, Champions League, and then League and Cup games as well, and then Denise the same over in the NWSL.
Should mention as well that there obviously are financial implications for these players as well. So each player picked on the squad guaranteed at least €27,400. FIFA setting aside that pool of €102.8 million in prize money that's to be divided among the 32 squads. So there are, of course, financial implications for these players.
Given the wages those players beyond that is not. It should be more, but it's not an amount to be sniffed at. It's definitely a big deal.
I'm pretty sure there are a good few players on that list who won't have been earning that much per year on just on a general contract, so you're probably looking at them at least doubling their wages for this year, which is
with one squad selection.
And you're also not counting in then as well the commercial value for these players of being on the World Cup squad. You know, brands are going to be rolling into all these people today now being like, hello, we already have Katie McCabe on, but is the Atkinson the next big thing?
And as a future career in punditry and stuff, like having been at a World Cup at whatever level, that's a thing.
One of these girls could have an Amber Barrett Scotland moment in the World Cup. Do you know, who's to say
Amber
that
Barrett,
can be?
hopefully.
Of course she can have it.
Still gutting for that statue outside the Aviva of her. Just in time for the Northern Ireland game when they get back.
Yeah. So how did you feel when you first saw the squad, Kathleen?
I think I probably had my most visceral reaction last night when I saw the reports about the squad, and I felt like I'd been kicked in the stomach a little bit because I was like, oh, those are some big losses and some big changes to the squad. But I think seeing it now, I'm more just filled with like a nervous excitement. I think that like Vera still has a bit of time to work with the players that are there. Obviously it'll be great getting Denise back into the squad, because she's been over in the States because the NWSL is still ongoing. And the thing is, like, these are the players that we have right now, so you just have to throw all your faith behind them. Like, we can complain today and be annoyed that like Megan Campbell and Aoife Mannion aren't there, but we also need to then turn our attention and be like, okay, well, what can this squad do, and how can they attack Australia, how can they attack Canada and Nigeria, and go from there, because sitting in our woe isn't going to get us very far.
Yeah, 100%. So that is the Republic of Ireland squad named by Vera Pauw for the Women's World Cup. You'll see it on screen there, the 23 players that have been selected for those games. Australia in Sydney on the 20th of July. We have Canada in Perth on the 26th of July, and then it's Nigeria on the 31st of July in Lang Park in Brisbane. Of course, now there's going to be the media day, as we said. Kathleen and Nathan and Ashley will be speaking to Vera Pauw and the selected members of the squad at the media day. There's the farewell friendly against France at Tallaght Stadium on Thursday the 6th of July, and the following day they will fly to Brisbane, where they'll set up camp ahead of that opener in Sydney. So loads of reaction across Off the Ball social channels for the rest of the day, and of course more reaction on the show this evening. But that is our immediate reaction to the Irish Women's World Cup squad.
The countdown to the World Cup is on. The Koigig Pod, counting down to more moments like this.
And it is Captain Fantastic,